That's a good point, actually. I wanted to add to this. I was doing the creation exercises, which brings me to your language of creation, the templates of creation, the creation exercises, which helps the mind expand its language capacity to find words for what you're experiencing, what's happening in your body.
Perfectly said. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. I'm so appreciative. Every time my system is in overdrive, I will sit and I will language it. I will do an observing template or a cravings template. So I forgot what I wanted to say, where I was going with this. Right, the narrative. So this morning I was doing an observing exercise, going back to, it's a certain, I describe it as a vibration in my field, but it's not really a vibration. It's a biological reading of a certain template of existence. So in my childhood, I was born in a very small country. We had a very different culture to where I live now in the UK. So my body remembers the way of being in my childhood. And as I was languaging it in the observing exercise, I realized that not only is this a narrative I picked up, this is a narrative I replicate. And this is a narrative I replicate with my choice, with my thinking, and therefore my behavior, and therefore looking for resonance to the narrative I tell myself, right? This is why there's so much emphasis on the media, on certain narratives, because the narrative creates a story, creates a reality, because people believe it, people reinforce it, and people become the carriers of it.
And a vibrational entrapment. It also carries a vibrational entrapment.
Yes, exactly. So yes, I'm going to do something radical right now.
Yay, radical. Next to Anxiety. That's probably my favorite song.
And propose that we be relentless and me first in unraveling this narrative and this replication and this vibrational stuckness and entrapment, and just break through and break through. What's the breakthrough like? I've learned this in CBT therapy. If you don't like a thought, just change it. It's great, fantastic. If it's a thought, oh, nice weather today.
Except for the fact you've adapted to it and you'll get kicked. Because see, we're survival first. We're survival first. That's why it's miraculous to be in an era where the fate of the human species is at risk, literally. Because now we have new survival thoughts, new survival feelings, because the species as a collective doesn't want to go out of existence. So it's very, very interesting moment in time. But to go to what you said, if you have a thought that has had you survive, it's not going to let it, the vibrational capture of it is not going to let go easily. I've ridden this through, I can't tell you how many times. It's why the template 3 and template 4 are so important, because it's an environment where you're literally revamping your nervous system so that you're only saying what you hold to be real. But inside that frame, you're not like, when you're taking that thought, that just the thought in the system that is not doing anything to break the looping mind. What happens is that thought already carries a register, and that register is connected to your survival. It's why in the creation templates, it's always saying what's pleasant, what's life enhancing, because our present thought structures are all about surviving. They're all about surviving. So it can be a good thought or a bad thought. And I've written it out a couple of times because as a psychic, I'll have an experience of something, and that almost electrical magnetic energy, I'll feel it. And it'll literally be like I'm our big old dog that used to go through our electrical fence. It's literally like this for weeks sometimes, because I keep holding to what, back in those days, because now I do the templates, but I'd literally hold to what I felt was really true. for me. And then my nervous system would fight me because it knew that if I'd had that thought before, it risked my very survival, mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually. So I had to ride out the electric fence of it until it could have a place in my system. I just think that's a really hard way to go.
I think we cannot be radical without finding safety.
I agree.
It's all well and good. It's just putting us at too much risk.
Yes.
Emotionally, physically, spiritually, with material possessions. You're becoming very, very exposed to a structure of reality that doesn't really account for the needs of your emergent being at all. But it demands of you that you comply.
Yeah.
And so it's very hard to be, a beggar and a revolutionary at the same time.
One of the things I've loved about the LBJQ community, because in Albuquerque, my daughter is part of that community and an advocate for that community, sorry. And one of the things I love is they really have embraced the word agency. And I think it's one of the best words we got going right now. I think it's a great word. And it fundamentally means I have the right to my choice and I have the capacity to face the consequences of that choice. That is an exquisite word. And so when you hear somebody say, I'm in my own agency, they're basically saying I'm being responsible for my choice. And I am capable of being in the consequences, pro or con, of that choice. And I think that's the leading edge of the new sense of self that is rising in human beings. And of course, it would be the more divergent part of our society that would start with that need. But eventually it will flow into other aspects of identification. And so it isn't
Naturally.
a lot of us, especially including me, in the era I was born into, it was all about saving people from themselves, from their from ways that harmed them. So there's a huge commitment to have people recover from alcohol addiction or drug addiction or psychological addiction. So we just took that model on as if everybody wanted to do that. If I can remember it, I'll like to try to find it for you. Hold a minute. There's a guy, I know C has it. I'll get it for you. There's this guy in Europe, Romanian, I think, who stopped the recovery model and simply asked people that suffered from addictions, did they want to recover or not? Was it an interest, not a necessity, but an interest? And there were those that did and those that didn't. And he honored and respected them equally. So this whole idea about there's a right way that we've been heavily incarnate in isn't as valuable as giving people choice. So when someone says to me something like, I can't even think of anything like, well, all those people are just out to get you, I'll say, well, is that really real for you? Because actually, if they say yes, I'm good to go. But if they say, well, what do you mean? Do you think it's real for me? I'll say, well, it only matters what you hold to be real, not what is being told you real out there. And often I'll see a really bad brain scramble, like they actually like it, that whatever got them isn't got them so bad anymore. And most times somebody will okay, the comment I make now is it something I said?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
But given the electromagnetic field and I often are having deep, profound conversations, it could well be.
I was tracking actually as you were speaking about addictions. One is my soul like smoking. So I consciously decided to stop fighting myself and quitting smoking every couple of years. And I'm going to start smoking. And I do. And there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of, you need to quit. You need to quit. I enjoy it. It's the best thing in the world for me. I'm having a great time. I think the difference between my addiction to smoking and my enjoyment of smoking is the nervous system, the neurodivergent nature of my system, where if I can't handle certain emotions or neural pathways and I can't figure out a way out of real discomfort, it sort of cushions, calms it down.
And it's one of the oldest traditions in our world.
Yes.
My the person whose house I'm in, she smoked cigars for years. And the only reason she quit was to belong to certain paths. She couldn't smoke. Right. But I mean, it was great to go sit out back with her and her cigar. And we have to remember we're history. We don't remember we're history. We only think we're this lifetime. But for many people who have an indigenous kind of nature, smoking is very key. It was a ritual. It was a ritual of community. It was a ritual of ceremony. And one of the things that both my kids started smoking early, and I put them on American Indian cigarettes because I just didn't want them to have the stuff that's in there that causes cancer. And it was great. It was great because they had a sense of self. I want to challenge something you said. And it's not you, it's the way we think. It's the way we're taught to think. Like you're honoring some tradition. You clearly are, because it calms you. That's a sense of self. And yet we're told to manage the body, that we need to manage the body to make it mind. But that's just a sidebar. The truth is you are what gets the satisfaction. When you light it up, when you sit there, when you feel it, the somatic of it, the sense of self it gives you, it's a whole world. And so it remains to be seen is if we restore our worlds, is that what calms our nervous system? Or is it an outside remedy that calms our nervous system? And I suggest it's the meta point of both.
I thank you for pointing this out to me. I am honoring peace. I'm honoring peace talks. I'm honoring peaceful.
Yeah.
It has a connotation of peace around this. I'm doing the art of peace in addition to my meditation practice because my system needs to find ways to be the building blocks of peace. Peace doesn't just occur because you wish for it. It's built like a house.
Yes.
Like a building with several floors. So yes. The first and most fundamental level is safety. You cannot have peace in the world if there's no safety in the world. It's just impossible, because unsafety makes you go into a nervous system response that immediately separates you from the other. So, and that is a recipe for
Correct. At least that's my observation. I mean, I was 19 years old. That means 20. So 20 from 77 is 57 years, 58 years I've been in my tradition. I've seen a lot. And what you just shared is really, really true. Human beings more than ever now long to be themselves. And actually there are less people. It's interesting how advertised it is in the news, this way of thinking and this way of being, like who to hate next. But what's interesting is the United States of America, which is considered one of the most prosperous countries in the world, has 40% of her people that we know about are depressed. So that's really good news. It means something's fundamentally missing in the society, that nothing is solving except something we've never thought of before, something new.
I have been tracking this. Actually, I've lived, my soul journey led me to live in different countries. So I was born in the Soviet Union. I lived through what they call perestroika, which is the collapse of the old system. So I am prepared for the collapse of the system.
Wow.
I've lived through the collapse of the old system and the emergence of the new system. And it was brutal and violent. It wasn't, but you found ways, you kept yourself safe because you understood the cultural context and you understood how to behave and how to speak and how to act in ways that kept you safe. On a global level where cultures clash, where there is a misunderstanding around values, what values to give women, what value to give men, what value to give thinking, what value to give a feeling, it's very difficult to find a point of safety because you will clash with every single culture there is, in the way they have been brought up. But there is hope, I think, because we all share fundamental needs, which we're fighting for now.
It also gives you the anguish that every seer has. You know, I joke sometimes and say, I just wish I was an alcoholic standing on the corner of San Francisco screaming it's the end of the world. It'd be so much easier than seeing what I see now and have nobody listening. And I have another friend, Katerina, who was a teenager when they threw Russia out of Moldova and Czech. And that you both have such, I mean, I listened to her extensively. I'm going to have you come on and talk on Create a World, I think, because I really questioned her extensively because we are unfamiliar. Most of the countries that have not been through that are actually unfamiliar with what you all have gone through, extremely unfamiliar. And you know, there's the old adage, well informed is well armed, is true. And it takes a culture that has lost, has become unconscious, that unconscious of danger, actually, that and have been what we call mollified in Tennessee. It's a colloquialism. Because see, I was in Saudi Arabia in the 70s, and I listened to the oil companies and the princes talk about how they would manipulate the oil prices until human beings thought it was just fine to pay $3 a gallon for gas, and how to use it to control a world. And you can't be in on those kind of conversations and see those kind of things and not have an intelligence about your existence that other people don't have.